Do you know who helped China advance their surveillance state? Big tech. Yep. Of course, they did it because, well, didn't matter about the people. It mattered about the data they could gather. It mattered about the money they could make. How U.S. tech companies benefit from China's surveillance infrastructure. U.S. tech companies have played a significant role in enabling China's surveillance state by supplying technology and expertise despite later efforts by the U.S. government to restrict such cooperation. Big tech companies explicitly want the U.S. to adopt a surveillance state as pervasive as China's. However, the business model of major U.S. tech firms, often called surveillance capitalism, relies heavily on collecting and analyzing and monetizing vast amounts of personal data, which echoes some mechanisms used in state surveillance. Collaborating with Chinese firms or observing their large-scale deployment allows U.S. companies to refine their own products, learn from real-world surveillance applications, and improve their offerings for global applications and improve their offerings for global markets. The worst part about living in a surveillance state is the amount of depression, suicide, and increased depression and suicide it leads to. Here's some examples. There is evidence that living under pervasive state surveillance in China creates significant psychological stress and emotional burdens for many citizens. Research indicates that some Chinese people rationalize surveillance as necessary for social order. They also experience strong psychic tensions and a heavy burden from constant monitoring, leading to the adoption of mental coping tactics and distancing themselves, if they can, from the surveillance. During the COVID-19 pandemic, draconian controls and surveillance contributed to widespread psychosocial trauma, including increased rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide, particularly among adolescents and healthcare workers. Who wouldn't feel burdened by all that? People just don't pay attention. You don't look at everywhere because everybody's so busy looking down at their phones. Just when you're driving, look at every lamppost you come to, every stoplight. I mean, maybe in some areas, if you're in a more rural area, you won't see it as much, but it's going to increase. These are at like every light, four-way light in any place you go to, unless it's way in the country somewhere. Who wants to live under that? I mean, people find a way, but you never have any privacy. See what this is for tech? The reason they love the China model is because it's about them engineering you to evolve. They want evolution, and they want to force it with their AI. See, AI runs China's surveillance system. It runs it so well that it doesn't matter if their face is looking at a camera or not. They can get them from any angle and know everything about them. This is a child in a classroom in China. They can tell when the child is depressed, when they're not trying as hard. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely... This being in America, there is nothing compatible with tech in the current form and our Constitution. But tech's never cared about our Constitution, but I do. Do I think it will do any good to say anything? No, because the tech will always be put first. It will be put first for our safety reasons, but then nobody in government should talk about us having rights anymore. Because when you have us under a police state, and it is a little different here because, well, it's even worse here because the corporations and big tech do it because they can do it where the government can't do it. So all the things that will lead to more depression, more anxiety, more misery. Does Mark Zuckerberg, does Elon Musk, do any of those people care about? I don't think so. I've never seen them really care about humanity at all. They just want control. You want your kid to you want anybody knowing all these things about your kid that you don't even know? The founders did not design the Constitution to be compatible with a police state. Instead, they created a government of limited powers with explicit protections for individual rights and strong checks on government and authority. Unfortunately, what our founders knew would be the problem wasn't the government, because that would be kept in check for the most part. But they knew the problem would come because of big tech, corporations like big tech and other corporations. And that is who is surveilling us. They get all your data. They don't care whether you like it or not. And in my opinion, it's like digital rape. You know, most people know that, your phone is always listening. And so if you talk about something, the next thing you do is you'll see an ad on your phone for buying something that you were just talking about, right? Ever since I learned that years and years ago, and this greatly depressed me, and people will think it's crazy, but I don't care. But, I've said that praying to me is talking to God. Ever since getting sober 3 decades ago, I talk to God. A lot of times I will talk to God out loud in my car or in my house when I'm alone. And when I found out that your phone's always listening to you, or your smart TV, I stopped doing that, and I cried about it some nights and it's not because I was afraid. It was because they don't need to know anything about my relationship or my praying and talking to God. But that's how I see it as rape. You may not be physically raping people, but you're all predators in tech, and you're all disgusting, and you don't respect our Constitution. You've used it to advance yourself. And I don't give a shit how great your robotics are. I don't give a shit how great your dogs on some military parade, robotic dogs are. It's all part of the same problem, and it's not what our Constitution was about. What I would really respect from our government is if they would stop bullshitting the people. Stop telling the people America is back. Stop telling people America is free. America is not free as long as it is kept under a surveillance state. Does that mean I'm blaming Donald Trump? No, I just think that he should be honest about it. Because there's no way, he's smart enough, he knows it. But it's out of his control because the corporations, the government can't control corporations. But that's who the founders were worried about. They knew the corporations would become the dirtiest sons of bitches of all. And that's exactly what they've done, especially big tech. I do believe in miracles. I do believe that God will turn this around. And I believe that the people that wanted to take us under this kind of dictatorship, and I don't mean Trump wanting to be a dictator, but tech thinking that they will rule over us and they will force us to evolve. Yeah, I think that the good God Almighty will evolve them straight into hell.